Hi there, and welcome to Elixir 101, a channel where we take a scientific approach to identify life's elixirs. Alright, in today's episode, I'll be dealing with just one paper, and I really enjoyed going through this paper. I highly recommend all of you go through the entire paper, although I'll be just giving a brief summary of what I understood out of it. Feel free to put in your comments and your opinions about what you learned from this paper down in the comments below. Alright, the paper's title is Intermittent and Periodic Fasting, Longevity and Disease. So this was posted quite recently in Nature Aging. So first of all, before getting into the paper, there's a bunch of things that I think is quite important for us to understand before getting into the paper, which is a few terms that will be coming across quite often in the paper. First of all is autophagy, which is basically the digestion of cellular components by enzymes of the same cell to allow for their degradation and recycling. Now, of course, I won't be going through all these terms, but I highly recommend you pause the video right here and just have a quick look at what these terms are. Now, caloric restriction, that is CR, is a dietary regimen with a 20 to 40% reduction of the normal daily caloric intake without malnutrition. Then there is dietary restriction, a dietary regimen which accounts a restriction of one or more macronutrients. Calorie intake can be normal or restricted. Then there's a fasting mimicking diet, which is an FMD, a diet designed to achieve fasting-like effects on the serum levels of IGF-1, IGF-BP1, glucose and ketone bodies while providing both macro and micronutrients to minimize the burden and adverse effects of water-only fasting. Then there's the Fockhead transcription factor, that is FOXO. Now, this is also one of the most commonly seen transcription factor that I have come across a variety of aging-related papers. Now, it's probably something that's worth looking more into, which is a subgroup of Fockhead transcription factor family regulated by the insulin P13K AKT pathway and involved in activation of stress response and survival genes. There's also the insulin IGF-1 signaling. Then there's intermittent fasting, which I won't read and bore you with. Then there's ketone bodies. So these are the intermediates of lipid metabolism that are produced by the liver from fatty acids during periods of low food intake, such as fasting or caloric restriction. So then there is an extension of something like caloric restriction, which is protein restriction. So this is a dietary regimen with a reduction in total protein intake or a reduction of specific amino acids. Then there is periodic fasting, which is an extreme dietary restriction period characterized by a complete restriction of food, that is water only, or a severe calorie restricted diet, that is the FMD or the fasting mimicking diet, for a prolonged duration, that is more than 2 days, followed by an undetermined ad libitum refeeding period. So periodic fasting can be repeated but infrequently, that is probably once or twice a year. So then there's different names of kinds of cells and markers. And then there's finally time restricted feeding, TRF, which is pretty much like intermittent fasting, which is a daily eating pattern in which all nutrient intake occurs within a limited number of hours, usually within 12 hours. Alright, so moving on, we see that intermittent fasting lasting from 12 to 48 hours and repeated every 1 to 7 days, and a periodic fasting lasting 2 to 7 days and repeated once per month or less has a potential to prevent and treat disease, mainly metabolic diseases. Now, this table basically gives you a complete snapshot of what each of these types of fastings are, which is both intermittent fasting and periodic fasting, the kind of macronutrient composition that they have, the feeding patterns that they have, and a brief description about what they basically are. So the most common ones here that they have addressed is ADF or alternate day fasting, the 5:2 ratio, which is 5 days of feeding and 2 days of fast. Now again here The kind of feeding pattern varies. some the calories are restricted, for others there's no restriction. So then there is the TRF, that is the time restricted fasting, which is kind of the most popular intermittent fasting, which involves 12 to 18 hours of fasting and 6 to 12 hours of feeding. And then there's the modified alternate day fasting, which kind of mimics that of the alternate day fasting, but there is some relaxation with respect to your eating periods and the amount of calories that can be consumed. Then when it comes to periodic fasting, there's basically two types. One is the prolonged fasting and the other one is the fasting mimicking diet. The prolonged fasting is pretty much just water only with a 3 to 21 days fast, which have 7 days or longer day refeeding period right after the fasting. And then there's the fasting mimicking diet, which has a slightly altered macronutrient composition, which is a little more involves a little more caloric intake to prevent just consumption of water and any kind of adverse effects. Now the description gives you a complete picture about what each of it is. Alright, so moving on, so let's look into the metabolic effects of what fasting does. So depending on the level of physical activity, a 12 to 24 hour fasting typically results in a decrease in serum glucose and depletion of hepatic glycogen, accompanied by a switch to a metabolic mode in which glucose, fat-derived ketone bodies, and free fatty acids are used up as energy resources. So basically, anything that's stuck up in your liver gets completely consumed. Now, after hepatic glycogen depletion, lactate, pyruvate, fat-derived glycogen, and amino acids account for the gluconeogenesis dependent generation of approximately 80 grams per day of glucose, which is mostly utilized by the brain. So pretty much everything that you're producing is just from the liver, and all the protein that you have, that gets converted to glucose, and any other fat gets converted to ketone bodies and again acts as fuel, and most of this is pretty much used by your brain. Now, depending on the severity and length of restriction, fatty acids are mobilized, leading to an increase in circulating ketone bodies and adiponectin and lowering of circulating leptin. In humans, the fed state blood levels of ketone bodies are at or below the limit of detection, reach levels of 0.2 to 0.5 millimolar within 8 to 12 hours after the onset of fasting, but reach somewhere between 1 and 2 millimolar after about 48 hours. Pretty much levels that you might need if you're planning on doing any kind of fasting. Alright, so there's a little bit more in detail about the alternate day fasting protocols and some effects that have been seen, such as if you see either short term or long term alternate day fasting carried out in healthy middle-aged humans, the effects on metabolic and cardiovascular markers alongside reduced levels of soluble, that is ICAM, an age-associated inflammatory marker, low-density lipoprotein, and metabolic regulatory triiodothyronine. So these are pretty much all markers that get altered just by doing alternate day fastings. Now you can also see that a 4 and 6 hour time restricted feeding reduces body weight, insulin resistance, and oxidative stress compared with the results from non-time restricted controls, supporting further studies on again time restricted feeding. Now again, coming into periodic fasting and the fasting mimicking diets. So long periods of caloric restrictions have been associated with a reduction in metabolic rates, which actually promotes fat accumulation after the end of the fasting or restriction period, which would result in regain of weight that was lost during your caloric restriction period. So in addition, multiple cycles of weight loss ranging between 7 to 10%, that is like these yo-yo diets, are associated with an increased mortality, which is counterintuitive and counterproductive. So PF, that is the periodic fasting and mimicking diet cycles that alternate with normal refeeding periods, appear to be safe in both rodents and humans and have beneficial effects on disease and disease risk factor, but when they started at middle old age. That is, in terms of rodents, it's 16 months, but in humans, you can of course extrapolate it. So the FMDs appear to be safe, but again, their use should be limited to just at most 3 times per year. In healthy people, again, with normal levels of disease risk factors, and again, please do consult your medical practitioners before trying out any of these. So now coming to the refeeding periods, that is the regeneration period. So fasting and refeeding regimens are powerful promoters of stem cells and their renewal mechanism, and activates tissue regeneration. So again, if you see here, there's something called the mTOR pathway. Again, this keeps coming up again and again, so I highly recommend you check this out. Find out what the mTOR pathway is and how its regulation impacts age and longevity. So it says that PF and FMD regimens can promote a rejuvenation process in tissues, organs, cells, and through the activation of cell death and autophagy, followed by the activation of stem cells and precursor progenitor cells. Again, on the right side, again you can see all these various pathways and the kind of cells that get activated during a prolonged fasting and refeeding period. So a recent study carried out in mouse model of intestinal bowel disease, that is a type of mouse model, showed that FMD cycles stimulate protective gut microbiota, reduced intestinal inflammation, increased stem cell number, and reverse intestinal pathology. So the most common one, which is the water only fasting, increased regenerative and reduced inflammatory markers without reversing pathology, supporting the possibility that specific nutrients contained in the fasting mimicking diet and possibly prebiotic ingredients contained in plant-based foods can have a crucial impact on the microbiota and consequently on the course of a disease. So basically, for improved gut health, apart from just doing a fasting mimicking diet or a water only fast, they also recommend using prebiotic ingredients, getting these ingredients through a plant-based food diet. Now, if you see this diagram, you can see how various cells, the kinds of cells, get regenerated during prolonged fasting periods. Now, this small table shows the kind of diet intervention and the kind of risk factors that decrease with the fasting. So if you see, in general, they pretty much all these kinds of fasting reduces weight. Then there's a few that reduce total cholesterol, that is have an impact on the cholesterol and insulin levels, as well as some of which have influence on the IGF-1, glucose, and various other C-reactive proteins, just based on the kind of fasting and the duration of fasting that you do. Now, while going deeper into the paper, you also see how these kind of diets have an impact on cancer. So this is quite an interesting part of the paper, which says that a series of studies in animal models show that these two kind of prolonged fasting acted like an effective chemotherapy at delaying the progression of wide range of cancers. So this is quite interesting. And going forward, it also showed quite interesting results on neurodegeneration. So it protected the neurons and ameliorate cognitive impairment in animal models. Further, again, diseases of the immune system. So certain dietary restriction regimens have the potential to prevent and or reverse age-dependent immune dysfunction by killing or altering the autoimmune cells and activating the HSC-dependent regeneration. Notably, the severe CR and 8 weeks of ADF regimen, that is a caloric restriction and alternate day fasting regimen, prevent autoimmune encephalomyelitis, that is EAE, in mice. And so I won't go into depth of the different kind of diseases and metabolic disorders that fasting prevents. So here again, there's diabetes and cardiovascular diseases, which I've covered in some of my previous reviews. So most importantly, we need to look into the quality of the nutrition that you're consuming during a fasting period and the refeeding period. So high protein intake in adult life, that is up to age 65, is associated with increased risk of overall mortality and cancer related death. But this association is attenuated or eliminated completely when the higher intake of protein is from plant derived sources. Again, there's a couple of instances of emphasis on plant derived sources of protein. So it has also emerged that amino acid quality can have an important effect on aging, and that an imbalance of that is BCAA and normal amino acid ratio can have an impact on reducing the longevity through a mechanism independent of the mTOR activation caused by the hyperphagia. It's not only important to separate the positive effects of fasting from the adverse effect, but also to match the type and length of the fasting with the goals that include health span extension and prevention and treatment of specific diseases and weight management. So have a particular goal why you want to do this particular kind of fasting. So that's probably one of the take-home messages from this paper. So hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you found something of value from this small review, make sure to leave a like and drop a comment, and of course subscribe to the channel for more. Thank you.